handle the truth.
I'll be back.
He's alive!
Was an excellent day for an exorcism.
Hi, this is Joe, and this is the Film Joe podcast, where film talk happens.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Joe, your host, and I'm here with Carlos.
The one, the only, the myth, the legend, the man himself, myself, Carlos.
The Jedi Master.
Yes, sir.
All right, and welcome to the podcast where we talk about films, filmmakers, trends, the good, the bad, and the not so bad, all in the spirit and for the love of film. So today we are exploring the power of the Force. So this episode has been long, and I've been kind of reluctant to do it because everybody does a Star Wars episode.
Absolutely.
But I guess it's kind of a prerequisite. You kind of got to do it. So here we are. So we got a lot to say, and so what we are going to do, we're covering the original 3 Star Wars films.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean the original theatrical cuts as they were shown in the movie theaters, which I was able to obtain through certain methods that I'm not going to talk about.
Correct.
But we do have those original cuts, and that's what we saw. And we're going to refer to these films by the title they were given.
Mm-hmm.
Not this bullshit Star Wars episode, whatever, the Phantom bullshit. No, Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
If you want to go original names, it's Revenge of the Jedi.
True. And we will be touching upon that one a little later.
Touching it.
Ooh. Using the Force. Okay. So with that in mind, let's also remind everyone that we're not professional critics. We're not college educated film theorists. We're just
Joe and other Joe.
right.
I'm not other Joe, but I'm Carlos.
Joe Carlos.
Joe Carlos.
Joe Carlos. And we just love to talk about film and go over them. So, but again, you may disagree, you may agree with us, but that's on you. So, on this episode, as we've mentioned, we're going to rate these films, and these are going to be on a scale of 1 to 10 Ewoks. All right. And also, keep in mind, this is loaded with spoilers.
I mean, they're films that are what? Star Wars came out 77?
46 years ago. So if you haven't seen these movies,
Shame on you.
yeah. But before we go on, it's time for... news bits. So this weekend, at the time of recording, this comes out a week after. So at the time of recording this episode, it was the Barbenheimer weekend, which was huge.
Man.
And so we have Barbie and Oppenheimer opening against each other.
I wouldn't even say opening against each other. I would say more like opening with each other. Because everybody is talking about, oh my God, Barbie is so, it is. And then Oppenheimer, oh my God, it's so good. And I don't want to say they're competing with each other because I've heard a lot of people that are like, dude, I'm doing a double feature.
Well, they're 2 different markets.
Yeah. Then I was talking to a friend and he was like, we went to go watch Oppenheimer. Then we went to a bar, had a couple drinks, then went to go watch Barbie.
Wow.
I was like, that's a whole day, man. Hell yeah.
And it's quite a phenomenon. The last time this actually happened, we got 2 completely opposite films that are very much anticipated, was back in 2008 with the Dark Knight, Batman the Dark Knight, and Mamma Mia. And those were 2 completely opposite films, and they took in a big chunk of that weekend. As it stands right now for this weekend, they took in about $500 million in ticket sales, combined the 2.
Jeez.
So theater chains.
That's a weekend, man.
That is a summer weekend.
Yeah.
It should be. And before the episode, I decided to take a look at the box office numbers, and Disney is suffering. I mean, their movies are not per se flops, but they are losing,
I mean, some of them are huge flops.
Well,
I mean, The Little Mermaid, that did poorly.
Very poor. I mean, they say it doubled what it costs to make, but there's also distribution costs, advertising costs. So it's still
Marketing and everything. Yeah.
So it's still in the hole. And of course, was it Elemental? Indiana Jones, unfortunately, is taking a hit. But I've yet to see both of them. So in our watch report, I know you're gonna mention.
I'm gonna talk about Barbie, dude.
Okay.
That was you gotta wait for that.
Okay. Also in the news, that 3 new posters, official posters, have been released for the new Exorcist Believer that's coming out in October, which is a direct sequel to the original 1973 classic, The Exorcist. And I don't know if you've seen these posters.
No.
They're high contrast, grainy, black and white. Yeah, they look like a nightmare. Also, the trailer was released, but only with certain screenings of Oppenheimer. And it hasn't.
Ooh,
yeah,
man, that's a trailer right there.
Yeah, and I got curious. I'm like, oh shit, I want to see this trailer, right? But I can't because it's still, hasn't been dropped online yet. But somebody leaked it, and they had it was a pretty good copy. I mean, they had the camera, their phone centered on the frame on the screen. So I saw the trailer,
and
it looks good, but they give away way too much. So it's almost like they're trying hard to sell you on this horrific, thing.
Yeah.
And that usually is indicative of the fact that it's not a good film. Yeah.
I was really hoping out.
Yeah. I mean, we still have to see the movie, see when how it turns out. But the trailer does not leave much to the imagination. It gives you the money shots right away. Instead of building up to it, keeping a mystery. But that was it. Now it's time for
the report for the watches. What have you been wearing on your left hand? Get it? Because it's a watch report.
Yeah. So
what kind of watch?
Right, the watch report.
Brunks.
Yeah, crickets.
Yeah.
I binge watched an entire series on Apple TV called Echo 3.
Is that like an alien or something?
No, it's about this woman who works. I guess she's a scientist and she collects, I don't know, spores and shit from the jungle. She's a botanist and scientist. And she's in South America and she gets captured by guerrilla warlords down there. And
I thought you were going to stop at gorillas.
Well,
like, damn, this is Planet of the Apes?
That's a different movie. And her husband happens to be Delta Force, as is her brother. Nice setup, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I went through halfway through it, I'm like, okay, the first few episodes, kind of a slow burn, but it's still good. The drama, the situation that ensues. But the latter half of the series, it was I think it's 6 or 8 episodes. It went to shit, bottom line. Have you ever watched a series where you finish watching and go, I just wasted 8 fucking hours of my life watching this? Yeah. It was bad. It pisses me off and I didn't enjoy it at all. But basically, that's all I've seen. What about yourself?
Oh, I got a lot to say this week.
What have you seen?
I got a lot to say this week. So, you know how I told you last week that I installed the TV mount in my room and everything, and I was told you, next week, I promise you I'm going to have something to say.
That's right. You did promise everyone.
I did. So, on my new TV, I watched Rush Hour.
Oh.
With, what's his name?
Chris Tucker.
Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan.
Classic.
Man, that movie's funny.
Oh, it's a classic.
That movie is fun. Let me tell you something, though. A lot of the jokes, I don't remember being so heavy-handed. And I'm watching it, I'm thinking, damn.
It's socially dangerous.
Yeah. Like, if that movie was made today, that, it would noise, man. That should make noise. Because, just to tell you, like, the kind of like the type of humor that was in here. Mind you, it's funny, right? But one of the jokes I really was like, oof, was basically when Jackie Chan first arrives to the States because so he's a security agent and the dude he protects, his daughter got kidnapped, right? So they send him from China to the U.S. and Tucker, Chris Tucker's character is the one to pick him up from the airport.
Who's a cop here in the States.
Who's a cop here in the States, right? So he picks him up from the airport, and you know how there's like the thing where, if I talk louder, maybe they'll be able to understand English.
Oh my God!
Do you understand me?
Oh,
I was like, oof.
Yeah, I recall there was quite a few jokes in there that were very well. Not, and I'm not going to repeat one of them,
Absolutely not, man.
which was at an all-black bar, and how Chris Tucker
Greets
other
the
black
bartender.
guys.
Yeah.
And Jackie Chan thinks that's the norm, and he greets other black guys with that and almost gets himself killed. Oh,
Yeah.
what's Jackie Chan? Nobody can kill him.
No. I will say though, I really like the choreography fights in Rush Hour.
Oh, it's
They were great.
anything Jackie Chan does is top notch.
Oh yeah. So I saw Rush Hour, right?
Okay.
And that was the only thing I was able to watch on the TV. Because then I was surprised with the very pleasant gift on Thursday of my mom telling us, we're going to go watch Barbie. And I was like, okay, sick, right? Man, that movie is funny and deep.
Wow.
Surprisingly. It was very refreshing, very kind of like sought after being, on like this trend of the same type of movies coming out every so while. And then Barbie comes out.
Yeah, it's something that really didn't call my attention, but I can see the appeal of it. A, it's different,
Mm-hmm.
and B, it's well done. I mean, for Margot Robbie
Mm-hmm.
and Ryan Gosling to do a film like this, it must have been a hell of a script.
It is a hell of a script.
Wow.
Funny as hell, deep meaning, and it hits you a little bit.
Wow. So you recommend it?
I recommend it.
All right.
I recommend that movie anytime.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Now I just need to watch Oppenheimer next weekend.
yeah, I got to catch up on Oppenheimer and maybe Barbie. So
I'm just trying to find a theater that has the 70 millimeter.
have you ever watched
screenings.
a film in 70 millimeter?
No.
Oh, it's an experience. Back in the 80s, it was common practice every now and then for a film to open up in 70. The Empire Strikes Back opened up in 70 in quite a few theaters. And it was kind of the norm. Now it's a novelty. It's a big thing. Well, because they combined 70 millimeter with IMAX, which is a higher frame rate. And so you get this amazing, crisp, clear picture that's almost three-dimensional.
It is. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So what do you say we jump into the episode?
Let's jump head first.
All right. Again, we're talking about the Star Wars saga, the original trilogy that came out between 1977 and 1983. There was 3 films, and I think epitomized what Star Wars should be, was, and is. So, in this first film of this legendary saga, we are introduced to a farmer, a pirate, and a princess in a world where an evil empire threatens the freedom of the galaxy.
Everything's under control. Situation normal.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
We're sending a squad in.
Negative. We have a reactor leak here now. Give us a few minutes to lock it down. Large leak, very dangerous.
Who is this? What's your operating number?
Morning conversation anyway.
Luke, we're gonna have company!
Luke Skywalker joins forces with a Jedi Knight, a cocky pilot, and a Wookiee, also with 2 droids, to save the galaxy from the Empire's world-destroying battle station, while also attempting to rescue Princess Leia from the mysterious Darth Vader. The film we're talking about is Star Wars from 1977, directed by George Lucas and stars Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher. So you got to see the original when you first saw them.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the heavily
edited
and redone with
Yeah.
CGI and stuff. So that's what you grew up on.
Yeah.
When you finally got to see this version, what you think?
Now, see, personally, I don't think it really needed all the extra touches. Like, sure, it's a little bit nicer to see it a little bit crispier, not so, I guess you could say grainy, with the original releases.
Right.
But, I mean, to be fair, we're talking 77, 81, and 83.
Right.
So it's going to look a little bit
Grainy and
grainy, but that's just the style.
well, a simple remastering of the image is enough.
Yeah, you don't need any, added, what was it? The scene in the desert where the stormtroopers are on the giant lizard thingies.
Oh, on the
What the fuck are those things called?
the dewbacks.
I'm just going to assume that's correct.
That's
'Cause
correct.
I can't check it myself. But, all those extra little scenes.
Yeah, because in the original, the stormtrooper sitting on that dewback lizard,
Yeah.
and it doesn't move.
Yeah.
But then they redid it, and you can tell it's all CGI, and he's moving around.
Yeah.
And just a lot of unnecessary stuff that I really didn't care for. It was not needed. It really wasn't.
Yeah.
And then if you look at, the copies that we have are remastered visually, and the sound is remastered. So it looks like it was visually, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And they look crisp and clear. So especially when you watch these copies, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I first saw them back in, the original I saw in the drive-in in 1977. And,
That's a hell of a vibe.
oh, my parents took me to this drive-in. It was called the Vermont Drive-In. And for those of you Angelinos out there, you might remember, if you're as old as I am, was up on, I believe it was on 139th in Vermont. And it was a really cool drive-in. We'd go there all the time. And I remember sitting in the back seat of my dad's, 1968 Dodge Coronet, which was a version of the Charger. And sitting in the back seat and goofing around with my cousin and looking up at the screen. And when this giant ship flies over the screen, I was just jaw dropped. And my world, as it changed. I became a cinephile from that point forward. It changed my life, I guess you can say. It's one of those, super impactful kind of films.
I feel like everybody that loves films always has that like one that really caught their attention, and from there it was like a whole, rabbit hole that they go down.
And that was me. Yeah. I mean, I was interested. I liked the Planet of the Apes films when I was a kid. I mean, who wouldn't? And you're a little kid. It's a bunch of talking monkeys with machine guns shooting people. It was
sounds appeasing to anyone.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And they were damn good. Well, at least the first one was a damn good film. But I really wasn't like mesmerized by the magic.
Yeah.
And that's what blew me away. And what was your gateway film that really made you become a cinephile?
Can I be fully honest?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a couple years after I've been watching movies, but at that point it's kind of like, I'm just watching movies because I'm bored, I got nothing else to do. But it wasn't until you told me that I told you, oh yeah, I've never seen Psycho. And you were like, you've never seen Psycho? Carlos, how many years have you been watching movies? And I'm like, I don't know. Just never seen it. Never got around to it. So then you booted up on the TV and we started watching it. And then I did not know how that movie ended. I knew nothing about it. I knew, the Norman Bates and the
right.
I mean, everybody knows it. It's iconic without even knowing this is a movie. But then after having finished it, I was just like, damn.
Yeah, I think I did see
a movie.
I saw your transformation from that point forward in that you were more into the film.
Cinema, not movies.
Not movies, because there's a big difference.
Oh, there's a huge difference.
People think, oh, that's just pretentious bullshit. No,
it's there for a reason. It has a higher status than something like, I don't know, like a Marvel movie. Right. I love Marvel. Don't get me wrong. I like most of their movies.
But when you watch a movie like Psycho or Casablanca or films of that nature, and then you watch, you go, this was a different level of artistry and storytelling. But also, one thing, I did note rewatching it, it wasn't as fast paced as Empire and Jedi.
Oh no, not even close. No.
But it wasn't boring.
No.
Because it was world building.
Yeah.
It was setting up the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And
I mean, imagine if they just jumped you straight into Empire. It would not have the same impact.
Exactly.
You got to build up to everything that you're going to do later on.
Right. Because, as we go through this episode, Luke goes through a growth transition from the first one. He's a whiny little bitch. Mm-hmm. He was. Yeah. I mean, he goes, oh, I wanted to go, hang out with my friends at the Toshi station. When his uncle tells him to go do his chores, to, I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master. At the end of Jedi, and you see that character arc, that transformation from boy, naive boy to a man, a Jedi.
Doing more than himself.
Right. And but I loved it. And you look at this film. The film is 46 years old. Mm-hmm. And you look at the special effects and you go, yeah, that's kind of dated. Now, it's not saying that it's bad. Mm-hmm. It looks kind of dated, but it doesn't look bad. But on the overall, it's pretty fucking impressive.
Oh, yeah.
That you Absolutely. Go, this can still be shown on the big screen today and hang in there. In fact, it looks better than half the CGI out there, all the computer graphics today.
Man, don't even get me started, dude.
Yeah.
If you told me this, would you rather have the effects of Star Wars or the effects of The Flash, which only came out this year? 100 times out of 100, I will tell you, give me Star Wars.
Because it's real.
The effects are practical and you can enjoy them more than looking at a rubber ass baby from the Flash.
Yeah. Oh God.
You
Yeah,
know?
and I saw clips of the Flash, and
The CGI is horrible.
It's horrible. It's more detracting than anything else.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, it's the classic story of good versus evil. It's simple yet powerful.
Yeah.
And that's what made this film so great. Now, behind the scenes, there's a lot of interesting. There's a shit ton of behind the scenes stuff. But did you know Darth Vader, who was played by James Earl Jones?
I love that voice.
The voice. He is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And physically, he was played by a British bodybuilder by the name of David Prowse.
Yeah.
Did you know they've never actually met?
James Earl Jones and David Prowse?
Yeah. They've never met.
You know what? I would believe that, though, because while Mr. Prowse is doing all the physical shoots, James Earl Jones, or Mr. James Earl Jones, we got to show him the respect,
Absolutely.
That's Mufasa right there.
Yeah, exactly.
He would be in the studio recording the lines, which makes sense.
Well, he would do it in post-production.
Yeah.
Way after the fact here in the States, because they filmed it all in England.
Mm-hmm. But then again, you would think maybe at a red carpet they would meet?
Nope.
Like events?
There's
Nothing.
a whole backstory with David
Jeez.
Prowse. But did you know also James Earl Jones had a stutter when he was growing up?
Damn.
And if you get a chance, I implore anybody out there to look up the story behind how he got rid of his stutter. And it's truly inspiring and just a beautiful, beautiful story. Another thing behind Star Wars that was monumental was that Lucas, he took a smaller cut of pay as a director because in exchange for merchandising rights.
That's a hell of a deal.
But the studio thought it was a fool's gamble. I mean, there was merchandise, that were related to film and TV shows, and they did okay business.
Yeah.
It wasn't what we know or what we see today. I mean, the fucking toy market now is the collector's market.
Yeah, man.
And there's some high-level toy. I mean, I'm looking here at my desk, and you see all these quote-unquote toys that I wouldn't give to a 4-year-old because he'll bite off the head and the.
I mean, they're 4-year-olds. They're gonna,
That's what they do.
throw Luke off of the Millennium Falcon onto Endor.
Which I did once. I did something like that. I had an X-Wing fighter toy, and I wanted to, we were playing out in the backyard, and I threw it through the air so it can crash. I broke the wing off. It looked pretty authentic, though.
Yeah.
In my own mind's eye.
You see the explosion in your 4-year-old brain.
Right, exactly. But yeah, he took a cut, and the studio's like, "Oh, you want to take me?
You want less money for something we're likely not even gonna do."
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, bud. Yeah.
Fuck it. And who went laughing all the way to the bank? George Lucas. Also, in early drafts of the script, did you know R2-D2 actually spoke?
What?
He actually had dialogue, and he was very rude and obnoxious. And
I mean, think about it like this: the way that 3PO responds to him,
Yeah.
it sounds like he's being a dick.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, somebody's boop, 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 his beeps, and they sound rude, like he's being a jerk.
Yeah.
But that was the actual dialogue. So I guess Ben Burtt, who was the genius sound designer for Star Wars, he designed the pew 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 pew, the sound, the laser blast, R2-D2 sound, all that stuff. That was Ben Burtt. And so when Ben Burtt was gonna do the sound for R2-D2 and he converted it into beeps, it was based on that dialogue. Like there's one scene where he goes, okay, that sounded horrible.
Yeah. I hear it.
Because Luke Skywalker's down after the Tusken Raiders take him out. Remember, they beat him up and he's unconscious?
Yeah.
Well, if you think, it sounds like, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And if you convert that to a beep, that's what he says.
Trip out.
So he's actually saying stuff. It's not just random beeps. Also, another aspect of this, of Harrison Ford, do you remember the scene where they bring Chewbacca in and they're dressed as stormtroopers and Chewbacca's the prisoner?
Yeah.
And they go up to the communication center?
Yeah.
And they get the big old fight and everything. They shoot everybody. And then like, okay, now we're going to find the princess, right? And so...
They start radioing in the little console, right?
Yeah, and Harrison Ford's like...
Who are you? What's your badge number?
Yeah,
whatever the fuck.
Right, which we played on the clip before this, where he says, boring conversation anyway. Luke, we're going to have company.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford did not even look at he saw the dialogue kind of like in glance. He's like, fuck it, I'm not going to remember it. I'm not going to memorize it because I want this to be totally just at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So he invented the dialogue right there at the spur of the moment. And it sounded genuine.
It sounded good.
I mean, he didn't know what to say, and it was perfect. And that was also because George Lucas was not a very good director.
Mm-hmm.
They used to make fun of him on the set because he would go, here's his direction. Faster, more intense. Okay, cut. That was George Lucas. And so
I feel the emotion with that, man.
Yeah,
I really feel it.
And luckily, he had this young cast that was really full of energy and really, really talented, that they were able to just run with it and do this amazing job. Mark Hamill had done very little. I think he'd done some TV work before that. Carrie Fisher, the same thing. Harrison Ford just had a couple of films that he'd done, nothing big. The only heavy hitters on the set were Sir Alec Guinness, who plays Ben Kenobi, or Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Peter Cushing, who played Grand Moff Tarkin. These two actors are classic British actors, amazing talent, and I think they were the two pillars that kind of held the cast together.
Yeah.
In fact, Harrison Ford was like, 30, 35?
Young, yeah.
And Fisher and Hamill were like 20 years old. So they were relatively young. Of course, he was the big brother.
Yeah.
And they would fuck around on the set a lot and not take business seriously, which would, George Lucas was under a lot of stress and would frustrate him. Well, when Alec Guinness was on the set, they acted right. They chilled. They out of respect because this is Alec Guinness.
I mean, you can't really be acting a fool,
Yeah. And also, according to the interview, you have the comic book, Star Wars.
The Star Wars.
And it went through many iterations. There was one iteration that was before the Star Wars. And where it had, some of it stayed the same in the Star Wars, where Han Solo was an alien.
Yep.
Luke was a girl, and the Wookiees were called Jawas. And R2-D2 and C-3PO were A2 and C3. And that was it. So that was the very early iteration and became the Star Wars, which changed that Luke was a combination of Ben Kenobi and
Anakin, I think.
And Anakin and stuff. So it went through a lot of changes.
Plus, not only that, it changed from May the Force be with you, or May... No. So the May the Force be with you is what we got, right?
Right.
But in the Star Wars, when I was reading it, it was May the Force of others be with you.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like may the ghosts guide you and protect you.
It was a lot more spiritual.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, George Lucas's inspiration for this was Joseph Campbell, with the hero's journey and stuff. And there was a lot of spiritualism. And, he does borrow a lot from that. He borrows from Campbell, from Kurosawa, and things along that nature. So there's a lot of...
if you look at it, it's for specifically like the Kurosawa films, it's kind of close,
Well, the samurai and Jedi.
Yeah.
And, also he borrowed from Westerns, from pirate films like, swashbuckling films of Earl Flynn, like Captain Blood and Robin Hood and things like that. So there was a massive, and World War II movies. So it was just a mashup of a lot of different things. And I think that's why it worked so well. Now, this is the first movie ever to make over $300 million in the domestic market. The first ever. And it was the first ever to cross $500 million over, its initial release worldwide. So break it down. The budget, check this out. Originally, it was like 25 million, but because nobody believed in Lucas,
they probably cut it.
And they cut it. And science fiction was a joke.
Yeah.
So they cut it down to 11 million.
Eesh.
Yeah, which is about $55 million today. It's still kind of high.
Still pretty low, though,
but it's still
for something as big as Star Wars.
Yeah. Box office wise, it came out to about $410 million.
Then or now?
Then.
Oof.
Which comes out to about $2 billion today.
Oof.
That's why when you hear films talk about, Avengers just made $1 billion. Oh, fuck off. That's not a new thing. If you adjust for inflation, it's not new.
Yeah.
So it's, but studios like to play with numbers that way. Now, reviews and scores. Roger Ebert. Now, I implore you, I recommend you do this, some research after this. Look up Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel.
Okay.
They were TV critics, and they had a show called At the Movies or something like that. And they were very popular in the 80s.
Okay.
And that's where Roger Ebert came, comes from. Of course, he started with the Chicago Sun-Times, and Gene Siskel was the competitor newspaper, the Chicago Tribune.
Mm-hmm.
And they hated each other. They were both movie critics in the same town, literally across the street from each other, and they hated each other. So I highly recommend you look them up and look up some of their reviews. Ebert was very tough on a lot of movies. Roger Ebert gave this film 4 out of 4 stars.
I mean, yeah.
And he said that basically Star Wars had placed him in the presence of a really magical movie invention. Here, all mixed together were the whimsy, fantasy, simple wonderment, and quietly sophisticated storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
He loved it, as did Gene Siskel. So it went well with both of them. They thought it was a fantastic film, and they both gave it 4 out of 4 stars. At IMDb, is sitting at an 8.6.
Mm-hmm.
Metacritic, 90 out of 100. Rotten Tomatoes critic, 93%. And Letterboxd has it at about a 4.2 out of 5. So it's pretty. It's
really
pretty
well.
way up there. So for my rating out of Ewoks, this film pretty much it marks the beginning of film history. It's good old fashioned action adventure storytelling, well structured, well paced. It's just was a modern cinematic marvel of his time and just an eternal classic. So for me, I give this one a 9 out of 10 Ewoks.
See, why a 9 though? Like, okay, well, to be fair, I was probably gonna go like 9.5 ish.
Okay,
right?
Don't.
No. Because here's the thing. I don't ever base my reviews off of yours. No offense.
Okay,
but
I'm taking. Jeez.
But pretty much, like, I would say it's a great hell of a movie. And remember a couple years ago when we went to the Star Wars Celebration when it was held here in Anaheim?
Yes.
Not the last time, but the time before.
Okay.
And they were showing big screenings of, what was it? It was Empire, and then I think it was Jedi.
Yeah, Empire and Jedi back to back.
And at the end of the night, everybody was tired. You fell asleep.
Oh, yeah.
My brother was out by the intro of Jedi. My mom was just from like first 10 minutes of Empire.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm never going to get a chance to watch these movies in the big film again, or in the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I got to stay up for this shit, man. So I ended up staying up and watching Empire and Jedi in a big screen, because that was the only time I ever got to do it. And God, that was such a great time, man. But I was always I wish it would have been Star Wars and Empire.
Yeah.
Because, see, I prefer, we'll talk about it later, but Star Wars would have been a better choice for me, because I would honestly rate this, 9.5 Ewoks. You got to slash it straight down the middle.
All right. Good rating. 9.5 is very good. All right. So now let's move on to the next entry in this saga, the Skywalker saga.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
After the rebels are overpowered by the Empire, Luke Skywalker begins his Jedi training with Yoda, while his friends are pursued across the galaxy by Darth Vader and a bounty hunter by the name of Boba Fett. The film is The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, directed by Irvin Kershner, and this one stars Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and a new addition, Billy D. Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I got to see at the same drive-in. 3 years, 77, 77? Yeah, 3 years later, I got to see this in the drive-in. And again, I remember that day so well, because it was a Saturday. My mom and dad, we throughout the week, we're going to go see Empire Strikes Back this weekend. I'm so excited. And that Saturday, now keep in mind, it's not like now you go, oh, I'm going to go catch a movie. It's 12 noon. No, at a drive-in, you go at the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole day I was just thinking about it. Like, keep in mind,
I'm watching Empire. I'm watching Empire.
oh man, so I had the toys, and I was so excited. I had all the comic books.
Wearing the Star Wars shirt, you're like, hee.
My Star Wars
like a little
underoos.
goober. Yeah.
Oh, I was so excited. And I remember going to the kitchen. My mom was cooking something. She was cooking up lunch or something. And I told my mom, I said, I can't wait to go see this. I'm so excited. She goes, okay, well, almost time. Also, it was my first pair of glasses that I had ever at that time. So that marks also the first time I got my glasses. It was better than I anticipated. It blew me away. It almost made me cry.
I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah.
This is a hell of a movie. This is, personally, this is the movie when I think Star Wars.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's easily one of the most classically cinematic films of all three.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all great, but this one was the most just perfect. You know, even down to the script. I mean, it was rich in dialogue. It had deeper cuts into character development, which brings you closer to the characters. So it was mind-blowing. And of course, you have the further growth of Luke Skywalker.
Harrison Ford.
Han Solo's character. I mean, it was just a blast. When is the first time you saw this? And again, I know you saw first the CG enhanced, with all the additions, but when you saw the original version.
When I saw the original, I think it was when we sat down and did a triple feature of watching all three of them. Because I think that day, I don't remember what the hell we did, but we did something where we set up the living room real nice and everything. And we put on Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi all in a triple feature with the original cuts. Or that might have been a weekend project. I don't know. Probably because that's a whole mission, right?
Yeah,
that's an entire day. But I think that was the first time that I got to see the originals.
And one thing that when I did get those cuts, you look at the cinematography and the set design and the special effects, the visuals. This movie, if of all three of them, was the one that least needed any kind of enhancements. It needed zero enhancements. I mean, that whole sequence when they land on Cloud City and you got that, orange, kind of like sunsetting sky in the background, and you got the blues and the reds, and it was just the most beautiful thing to look at. And to add CGI, computer enhanced graphics to it was a crime.
Yeah.
And it just so unnecessary. But it was good. One of my favorites.
My favorite.
Yeah. It also, I mean, to me, it came across more mature, more emotionally impactful. Like I said, it made me cry. I love you. I know. Oh, yeah. God, that's just gut-wrenching. And of course, you have the intro of three new characters, which became iconic. Lando, Yoda,
Space Pimp.
The Space Pimp. That dude was so cool.
That dude is cool, man.
He's like, oh, Han, when he landed and he sees Han Solo, he's like, oh, Han, my old friend, yada yada. And then here comes Princess Leia. He's like, hello. There. Oh shit, he threw on the groove. Oh, it was crazy. He was really, really awesome. And
I first heard the term Space Pimp when referring to Lando from Daisy.
Oh,
we were having a talk about Empire. She was like, "Man, Lando was a space pimp." I was like, "That is a hell of a term. I'm gonna use that."
And he was smooth.
Yeah.
And when he puts her, when they're settling in, and he, she gets her dress. I guess they get her dressed, for dinner.
Yeah.
And he sees her. He's, "Ooh, you truly belong here amongst the stars." Oh man,
sir.
Han Solo's like, "Man, I felt emasculated here."
I need to step on my game.
Right. I guess he's Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, that was Lando.
And
man.
of course, the most iconic character to come out of this, which is the character who did the least, but was the coolest, which was Boba Fett.
Wrong.
What?
This is not when he was first introduced.
No, you're right.
Uh-huh.
The
Star Wars Holiday Special. Yeah.
Although in animated form.
Eh.
But still, you're right. That was the first time. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I was having this conversation ironically with the teacher. I don't know how that's ironic now that I'm thinking about it. Nonetheless, I had this conversation with the teacher one time where we were talking about like cool characters, because at that time, I think it was The Force Awakens was barely coming out, right?
Right.
And you have the new Boba Fett. I did air quotations, by the way, because you guys can't see.
Okay.
Captain Phasma, right? And we were saying like, oh, dude, like that's gonna be the new Boba Fett. And I was like, here's the thing. And this came true afterwards when the whole new trilogy came out. Boba Fett did so little, had so little lines, and one of his lines was "Ah!"
Right, Jedi.
Jedi, man.
When he gets killed.
And I was telling him, I was like, listen, I like Boba Fett. He's cool as hell. Did not do a whole lot.
But he did mouth off to Darth Vader,
That is true.
where he tells him
He's no good to me dead.
Ooh, and Darth Vader's like, don't worry.
We'll compensate you.
Wow.
Like,
That-
damn.
He must, he had
That's some
balls.
cojones right
Yeah,
there.
But it's funny, even in Jedi, he does very little.
Yeah. And not a whole lot. He just kind of stands very menacingly.
Now, when this movie was finished, of course, we know what a monumental hit the sequel was.
Mm.
But did you know that after they completed Star Wars, the first one back in 77, Lucas was so convinced that this would be a flop. He thought it would not make money at all.
Oof.
And he was stressed out. In fact, a little side note, he decided to take a vacation, him and his wife, with Spielberg and his wife or whatever.
No,
whoever.
man, that's a hell of a crew to go on a vacation with.
Yeah, so they go to Hawaii, and that's where Lucas tells him, listen, I have an idea for another story. And it's about an archaeologist
Mm.
who has a whip. And he goes to the jungles. And that was the birth of Indiana Jones. But that aside, yeah, he took off and, to try to de-stress. And of course, the movie turned out to be a monumental hit. But before that, he did commission an author by the name of Alan Dean Foster to write a novelization of a sequel. And that was called Splinter in the Mind's Eye.
Okay.
And that was the sequel. And basically, okay, here was the story. The story basically focused on Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, who are marooned together on the planet Mimban, where they encounter the locals and the struggles against the Galactic Empire, including Darth Vader. That was the story.
Okay.
Now, you notice there's no Chewbacca,
No
No.
Han.
no Han Solo, no
No
but-
Rebel Force.
because if they did a sequel, they won't be able to afford all of that. Exact. And Darth Vader, they can easily get, the same actor, and he's not going to, they can
work around it.
But the success of Star Wars, all this money rolling in, Luke's like, fuck this. We're doing our own, a different sequel. Now, the novel did come out.
Mhm.
And I guess it was just kind of like, these are the further adventures of, or different adventure. And eventually, I think, in the 90s, they came out with the comic book version
Oh, okay.
of
Okay.
this. And it's not a bad story. It's pretty good. Another aspect that was really a lot better, of course, like we mentioned, the script. Irvin Kershner, who directed this, was also George Lucas's film teacher.
Trip out.
Yeah. And Lucas brought him in, and he's like, I want you to direct the sequel. And Kershner's like, I don't do special effects movies.
Mhm.
He goes, that's not the point. I want you to focus on character, on development of the characters, of story, and make it more, deeper, which was what Kershner was. He's a film teacher. He knows film. And as far as special effects, he's like, don't worry, we got that shit covered.
Yeah.
All you need to know, point the camera this way, that way.
Direct
Yeah.
the people.
Direct the people, direct the story, the emotion. And, of course, they brought in Lawrence Kasdan to write the screenplay. And just an amazing script, the dialogue, the story, it was just perfect. And I think that would, just raised it above the bar that was set by Star Wars, which I thought would have been impossible. Also, another aspect that, when he's frozen in carbonate,
Mhm.
see, here's the kicker. By the time Empire came out, Harrison Ford did no longer want to play Han Solo.
Yeah.
So he's telling,
wasn't he reluctant from Star Wars?
well, it was a job at the time, so it was
true.
no big deal. But at this point, he didn't want to do it. So he told Lucas, kill me. Kill my character. And he's like, no.
You're too precious.
Yeah.
I
And
can't kill you.
And also another thing was that Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill were locked in for a 3-picture deal.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford was not.
Mm.
He only locked in for 2. So, the cliffhanger at the end when he's in carbonite,
Yeah.
the whole thing was, well, he might die,
He might live.
he might live, depending if Harrison Ford wants to do the next film, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And of course he was able to. And he wanted to die in Return of the Jedi.
Lucas, what part of kill me don't you get?
Right. And no, they did, he's like, no, you're too valuable, with merchandising.
Yeah,
And
we
that's-
need you, man.
We need you. And that's one thing that also hurt Lucas was that, we'll talk about later in Jedi, was that he got too consumed with the merchandising aspect of it, which is why Gary Kurtz, his co-producer of Star Wars and Empire, eventually said he quit because Lucas was no longer focusing as much on character and story, but more on merchandising. He's like, oh, let's create a character so we can sell the toys.
Yeah,
And you can kind of see that in Jedi.
you can see that in Empire too.
Yeah, you can. Well, with Yoda
Yeah,
overall. Also, the film was the first film, one of these big films to come out of 70 millimeter. It was one of the first films to have a 5.1 surround sound mix. So they were breaking all kinds of technical walls and just creating new technology that we see in film, we hear in film to this day.
yeah.
We owe that to Lucas, THX sound, ILM, digital, everything.
He's kind of like the James Cameron of back then.
Yeah,
We're gonna do this. Well, we don't have we can't. There's not the technology. Then we'll make it.
invent it.
Like, okay, besides of what we think of James Cameron as a person, as a director,
Oh, he's a
damn.
And
Like,
then,
have you seen how they filmed the Shape of Water? Not Shape of Water.
oh,
Way of
the
Water?
Abyss.
No, the Avatar. The new
Oh, Avatar. Yeah, yeah.
Where mocap isn't accessible underwater because
Oh.
it gets all funky.
Right.
And then if they had filmed with wires, it just doesn't look real. So they had to basically build a sort of way that you can do mocap underwater.
Wow.
So my respects, then,
Well, the Lucas and Cameron pretty much shaped what the technology is in film today, both visually and audible in
Yeah.
what we hear, what we see. They changed the landscape forever.
Yeah.
So the movie was huge. Obviously, it was a sequel to one of the biggest box office hits of all time. The budget on this one was a little more. It was about 18 million,
Ah.
which he financed himself because at this point now it's an independent film.
Yeah.
So at $18 million, which is about $67 million today, still on the low side for a movie on that caliber.
Yeah.
So the box office came in at about $538 million back then, which is almost $2 billion in today's dollars.
Yeah.
Amazing. And all that profit went straight into Lucasfilm, into his own pocket.
Yeah. Because
And-
that it's an indie film.
Right. And that's how he was able to produce, the Return of the Jedi at that point. So box office wise, it did well. Critically, it was a mixed bag of critics, but overall they believed that the Empire Strikes Back was a good film. It was as enjoyable as Star Wars. They believed that the tonal shift of this film going into more darker, tonalities and more mature storylines, that it detracted from the charm and kind of the silliness of the original.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with that.
And I don't agree with that either.
I think it just matured.
It developed.
and evolved.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of mirrored Mark Hamill's character of
Mhm.
Luke Skywalker and his growth, because he is the central character. So IMDb, it's sitting at an 8.7. Metacritic at 82 out of 100. Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 94%, which is certified fresh.
Yeah.
Audience scores 97, and Letterboxd has it at a 4.4 out of 5. Stellar, top-notch ratings.
Yeah.
So my rating on this, it was a bit darker than the first, more serious in tone, deeper character development, and improved special effects. It just made it, the special effects, even though they were better, it wasn't that sold me on the film. It was the maturity and the depth of the film and the storytelling. And it does dig deeper into the soul. Great screenplay, catchy dialogue. My rating on this, a 10 out of 10 Ewoks.
Easy.
Yes.
Easy.
The best of all. And, I don't know if this is a spoiler or whatever, but yeah, on my feelings on the rest of the films, but this is the best Star Wars film ever made.
Yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
See, I gotta agree with you on that, because Empire stands as the Star Wars movie for me. This is the one I'll rewatch whenever I'm bored. This is the one I'll go to. This is the one I can quote the most, and I don't find anything really wrong with it. I mean, the pace from the beginning, where you see everybody in Hoth and it's all frozen and everything, mwah, chef's kiss. To where now you're seeing them in Cloud City and it's a trap. Boba Fett's waiting for them. Vader's waiting for them. Amazing. And then you're left with like 20 minutes left into the film, and you're thinking, oh, Han Solo's frozen in carbonite.
Right.
If the Boba Fett already took him, what's gonna happen? And you're like, no.
I was fucking pissed when I was a kid.
Now, see, here's the thing. I had to wait 3 seconds. You know,
Right.
I would when I shit, click Return of the Jedi. You know,
3 years.
you had to
over
wait 3 years, so that's a whole different
Yeah.
feeling. But to me, it was just so perfect seeing the reveal, the biggest cinematic reveal of all time.
Oh, which we played on the clip.
Yeah.
Which sorry we spoiled it for you,
Yeah.
but
a little late, but yeah, mwah, chef's kiss, 10 out of 10 Ewoks.
absolutely, I
Yeah.
totally agree. So now we go to the end of the middle trilogy, and quite possible what I would consider the end of what was the greatest Star Wars era.
Yeah.
Master Yoda. Is Darth Vader my father? Rest thy maid. Yes. Rest. Yoda, I must know. Your father is.
After rescuing Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt, the rebels attempt to destroy the second Death Star while Luke struggles to help Darth Vader back from the dark side. We are talking about Return of the Jedi from 1983, and this one is directed by Richard Marquand. This one stars, again, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Billy D. Williams. This one I actually got to see in an actual walk-in theater, a regular, normal theater. And fuck, it was amazing.
Yeah, see, must be nice.
I saw it in a theater in Hollywood, which was called the United Artists Egyptian Theater.
That's a long title.
It is. We should just call it
The Egyptian.
The Egyptian. And the history behind that, it was made about a year after the Chinese theater.
Oh, got it.
Same owner. And he liked to do these themes, Chinese, Egyptian. And it was a beautiful theater. It had a huge wide screen that was concave. It was a curved screen. I went with my mom, my dad, my sister Daisy, and it was an event. And just an amazing experience. Loved it. I mean, not my favorite Star Wars film.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm saying I didn't like it, but it's not.
It's not Empire.
It's not Empire or even Star Wars, but it was just so much fun. It was a lot of fun. When's the first time you got to see this?
The first when we did the triple feature, that was same
Oh,
weekend,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I saw that one, and then when, like I said earlier, when we went to the Star Wars celebrations, I got to rewatch it in the big screen. Then
Oh, it was the.
it was a theatrical, or no, not the theatrical, the edited version.
Yeah, the special edition.
Which I gotta say, my least favorite part of that movie is when they're in Jabba's palace and they have like the creature with like this tiny little legs, skinny little arms, but this huge fucking nose lip thing.
Oh,
that
the
starts
singer.
singing. Yeah.
What is it called? Size Noodles.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you ever got to see the original, that was an amazing feat of special effects.
Yeah.
I used to watch a shit ton of these special effects behind the scenes TV series and shows and documentaries. And what went behind bringing that character of Sice Noodles, the lead singer of Jabba the Hutt's band, was incredible. I mean, she had like a tiny little round body, long skinny legs, skinny arms, a weird looking head with a long snout and lips at the end.
Yeah.
And all of it was done with puppetry from people underneath the stage. So you had this one actor with rods sticking to the arms and legs that connected to the puppet on top.
Yeah.
So he would dance.
And then the puppet would dance.
Oh, and then they had somebody with servos and remotes controlling the
nose
lips
and everything. Yeah.
Oh, God. And
then to redo it with CGI.
It was almost a slap in the face to
Yeah.
these amazing artists and engineers that created the special effects.
Yeah.
When I saw the remaster, I was like, oh. And then they
Yeah.
had this guy kind of like, no, fuck it. It was terrible.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to talk about it.
I don't know what the hell he was, but he was kind of like alien rapping.
Oh,
Like,
God. It just makes my skin crawl.
Yeah. It was kind of uneasy to watch.
So for you kids out there who've never seen the original, you're missing out.
Yeah.
You really, really are. But to me, it's easily the most fun of the three. You got to give it that. It's a lot. I mean, Empire, was serious and intense, and it was, the drama, but this one was a little bit more lighthearted and fun.
Yeah, okay, fair.
And with the Ewoks and everything, which people, by the way, back then hated.
I like them.
But to me, and this may be controversial, it has the best and the most emotional lightsaber duel of all the films in this series.
Okay, that I gotta agree to, but kind of not agree to.
I know where you're going.
Because here's the thing. Empire had a really good lightsaber battle, but it wasn't just lightsabers. It was lightsaber, then I toss you this fucking thing, then I shoot you out this fucking window, and then I slice off your hand.
Right.
So there wasn't a whole lot of actual
Right.
But I will say Jedi did have a much longer and more satisfying, I guess you could say, battle between Vader and
well, here's
Luke.
the thing. Both lightsaber battles. Now, the top three, in my opinion, would be Jedi, Empire, and Revenge of the Sith with Darth Maul. And that was a damn good one. But even
wait. Revenge of the Sith. Phantom Menace.
No. The one with Darth Maul. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. In Phantom Menace, they had that. And that was, well, you know what made that?
The Duel of Fates.
That's the score.
Yeah, man. Oh,
that's what
hell
made
yeah.
it. Yeah. High five. Yeah, no,
That shit was amazing.
That's what made the scene. If you take that out,
it was.
It chops it. I mean, anything you take out the score, it's going to reduce the impact. But by how much? Now, what's going on during Luke and Vader's first confrontation on Cloud City? He's trying to bring Luke to the dark side.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the big reveal that I am your father.
No.
Fuck it, I'll jump instead. And so there's a lot going on there. There's a battle, but it's not. It's an external battle,
but it's internal as well.
Internal, as well as Return of the Jedi, because now they're fighting for the soul of one another.
Yeah.
One to turn to the dark side and one to turn to the light side. And so that's what's going on there. And you got, in Jedi, the Emperor right in the middle, tempting Luke to the dark side.
Yeah.
That's where these two lightsaber duels are head and shoulders above anything else, including the duel of the Fates in Phantom Menace, which was fine. It was fun. It was badass.
Yeah.
But what was going on in that scene? What were they thinking? What was going on? Was there any emotional, except for the fact that Qui-Gon gets stabbed in the gut with a lightsaber? You're like, oh, fuck, he's dead.
Well, here's the whole draw between Darth Maul. He was wasted. He was absolutely wasted in Phantom Menace because he was such a cool character. Concept design, dual lightsaber staff thingy.
I agree.
Mwah.
I agree.
And then to kill him off in that same film, I'm thinking, this is the new bad. This is not the new Vader, but the new mini Vader Jr.
Right. And also, that whole lightsaber duel, the backdrop, there was no backdrop of story, of character, of anything. What was at stake?
Yeah.
That's the key. What was at stake in Empire for Luke Skywalker? His soul.
Yeah.
What was at stake in Return of the Jedi? His father's soul.
Yeah.
What was at stake in the Phantom Menace? One of them's going to get stabbed.
Yeah.
That was it. And that's why I think it was an empty, sequence versus these two. And Empire was great, but Jedi, when there's a scene and the soundtrack, the score, when Vader says, well, if you're not going to turn to the dark side,
then maybe
sister. And Luke loses his shit.
Yeah.
And the music pumps up. And not to mention, this is taking place on a tri-field battle. There's the battle on Endor, on the moon of Endor.
Yep.
There's a space battle with Lando. Leading the rebellion. Yeah. And then you got this battle on the new Death Star with Vader and Luke and the Emperor.
Yeah.
And the shifting back and forth. You would think it would be confusing or annoying. No.
It's easy to track.
It's so easy to track. I mean, granted, you sit there, you've seen Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and this is going on, and then they cut to Endor. You're like, oh, fuck, what's going on? I want to see. And then you go, whoa.
Oh.
Now you got the Ewoks doing their shit, and then you got they jump into space and there's Lando and it's a clap,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it was just masterful editing and scripting, which was a lot of fun. And of course, let's not forget to mention the speeder bikes. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, definitely, just an amazing.
One of my favorite things from Return of the Jedi, though, is I remember it was either you told me this. No, actually, you told me this. That God, what's the name of the character that plays Chewbacca? The actor
Peter Mayhew.
Peter Mayhew. They told Peter Mayhew because they were filming in the Sequoia forest, right?
Right.
They told him, "Hey, you can venture out, but just don't go too far, and always take someone with you." And you know why?
Because it's like they might think he's Bigfoot and shoot him. Oh man!
The first time he told me that, I found that so funny because he's a tall motherfucker.
Oh, well, here's a little side story also when they were filming, because they were filming out in the Sequoias and it was like super hot.
Ugh, so
And-
sorry.
Yeah, and the Ewoks, all the little people playing the Ewoks, they had to wear those fucking costumes all day.
I thought they were kids.
No, they were midgets and dwarfs.
Oh.
And they were getting pissed off because it was so hot. They had to wear these things on all day. So they decided to let the producers know.
Uh-huh.
So one day a PA arrives at the trailer, on the set, and he sees a note that says, the actors who play the Ewoks, they're on strike and they've left.
Oof.
And they got to film this whole sequence with Ewoks. So he's in a panic. He goes out there. He gets everybody together, tells them what's going on. They've gone on strike. Now, keep in mind, this was the film was still being called Revenge of the Jedi, which they changed because Jedis don't seek revenge. So they're there and they're freaking out. And here comes the bus on the lot or on the location. It's empty. There are no actors. And they're like, fuck. And then they hear screaming and yelling at a nearby hill. And here comes all the little people running over the hill, yelling and screaming, revenge, revenge, revenge. And they're all wearing T-shirts that say Revenge of the Ewoks. Now, they were...
That's cool as fuck, man. That's cool as fuck.
So it was kind of a joke, but kind of not. But the point was made.
Yeah.
So let's get into the box office real quick here. The budget, this film was about $32 million, and which is about $98 million today.
So the most expensive of all.
Of all. Box office wise, $418.4 million, which is about $1.2 billion today. So all of these were $1 billion films.
Yeah.
Reviews and scores. Roger Ebert, the Chicago Sun-Times, he gave this one also a 4 out of 4 stars, calling it a complete entertainment and a feast for the eyes and a delight for the fancy. It's he fucking loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it. Audience cinema score came out at a B-. IMDb, it sits at an 8.3. Metacritic has it at 58%. Rotten Tomatoes audience score 94, critic score 83, and Letterboxd has it at a 4 out of 5 stars. So here we go with my rating. A lot lighter in tone, a lot much more fun, not as deep, fast paced, but I think it closes out the saga just right. My rating, 8 out of 10.
Nice. Here's my whole thing. I had a couple issues with the movie where it just kind of some things didn't make sense. Like in the edited version, you know how they cut out the Ewok celebration?
Right.
And instead they put the galaxy celebrating, right? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because how would they even know what the fuck is going on in the moon of Endor, probably way the hell across the galaxy?
The internet?
The Force?
The Force?
No. So
Yeah,
that whole
gotcha.
thing didn't make a whole lot of sense. I had a couple other issues, but here's my whole thing. Still a really good, fun Star Wars movie. Not my top 3, though. It does not make the top 3.
Okay.
If for me, it would go Empire, Star Wars, and Rogue One.
Okay, I agree. That's pretty good.
That movie, what made that movie for me was the last 10 minutes of it. When you see Vader in the dark ass hallway and you just see,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
That was amazing.
that movie gave me chills. But I would give this one an 8.5.
All right.
8.5 Ewoks.
All right. So it's an 8.5 Ewoks from you and an 8 out of 10 Ewoks from me. So now there's something that's been bugging me. I know we're running a little long here, but bear with us. It is a Star Wars episode, so it's got to be a little long.
True.
So we've talked about how we've watched the original cuts
Yeah.
of these films. Now, I always wondered, why don't they release the original cuts?
Mhm.
And I've heard excuses, I've read excuses that the studio says, well, the original version is unavailable. We can't get those cuts. But, there's a fucking Laserdisc copy
Mhm.
available out there that has the original cut. Remaster it, something they can work with it. They can make another version. But Jon Favreau, who I used to hold in high esteem. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jon Favreau is a big-time producer now over at Disney, Lucasfilm. He's the producer of The Mandalorian, Rebels.
Yes.
And so
I don't know.
he's deeply entrenched into the Star Wars universe now. A bigwig over at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Might take over Kathleen Kennedy's job.
Someday.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But according to Jon Favreau, he believes that the original cuts of these films, they're not really needed. That these cuts are not relevant to the current landscape of the Star Wars universe and its expanded universe. Basically, they're not needed. We don't need to release them. That's his point of view. He says that they pretty much just provide nostalgia for those who grew up on these versions, but basically are irrelevant to newer generations, as the newer versions fit better with the narrative of the current expanded universe. That's his position. Now, not needed. Okay. History. It's okay for it to be forgotten.
Yeah.
This is cinematic history. Okay. What? Just fuck cinematic history? Ignore it? Since it doesn't fit the current ideology of current generations, fuck it and just
Forget about it.
Yeah, just
Leave it to be.
rewrite it. And so it's better suited for the current agenda and narrative. To that I say, fuck you, Jon Favreau. That is not a true cinephile. That is not a true film lover and a historian. And if you really love film, regardless, you save it. So you should say Birth of a Nation. What's the other one? Gone with the Wind. I forgot.
Let me look at the poster real quick.
Yeah, Gone with the Wind.
Casablanca.
And Casablanca. Well, Casablanca kind of. But these films, because they're inappropriate, we should get rid of them. Right? We're not fucking Nazis here.
Mhm.
Keep these things in perspective. We need to keep these things in our cinematic history to know where we were, where we are, and where we need to be.
Yeah.
I think that, sure, I think it's fine. What they should do is just, we need to preserve cinematic history. It's very important.
Especially with films as relevant and as important as Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I think pick and choose the version you want to subscribe to. Fine. You think these versions work better for you? But we do need to preserve the film history and not discard it and rewrite it to what fits the narrative or what obvious, agenda driven gains. And that, you got the retconning of the new, of things from the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
They're retconning shit, new shows, movies, games, and so forth. And all this controversy created by bitchy so-called fans. I think we veered away from the original films, what they meant, what they represented. I mean, look, Star Wars was once a special thing. It was something unique. It was fantasy. It was what dreams were made of. And I just think all of that is lost now.
Mhm.
It's gone. It's just...
Well, I mean, okay, so look at it like this. From Return of the Jedi, right? Now, those were the movies, right? And then you come out with Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those were at best. Revenge of the Sith was the only,
I think that was as close to Star Wars as they
Yeah.
eventually got,
And then afterwards, you have The Force Awakens.
which
Then
I
you
thought was
have-
good.
It was good. Then you have Rogue One, which I personally really loved. Then you have Solo, and then you have 8 and 9.
Right.
Right.
Last Jedi.
And
Rise of
Rise of
Skywalker.
Skywalker. And at that point, you're not really the magic of what Star Wars used to be is kind of gone by the time Solo comes out.
I agree. I mean, look, I think what's behind all of this is that there is no true fandom anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There is not. Just a bunch of entitled, whiny little bitches who sit in front of their computer or phone and spew out all this fucking anger vitriol and bitterness and demand, and they declare what Star Wars has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the way it works. In my opinion, I really do think that these shows and films, this is just my opinion, they need to stop being made. It's not going to happen.
I mean, I would still like them to be made. I still want to watch more Star Wars.
Well, here's the thing. The further we get with this ideology and this mindset, we're further, we're drifting further and further away from the core essence of the purity. And not only are they getting worse, the further on we get, they look less and feel less like what a Star Wars film felt like, or the 77 film.
Mm-hmm.
And it just a facsimile overall of what Star Wars was. And I mean, you know what? Maybe it's evolution of film, evolution of stories and so forth. But me personally, I'm off that. I'm no longer watching any more Star Wars films or TV shows. They're just getting worse. They're politically driven. They have their own social agenda. And, what's taking a back seat is the spirit and the soul of what Star Wars was.
Yeah.
I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah.
Fuck John Favreau. Sequels and remakes. There were no remakes, but there was a shit ton of sequels and spin-offs. You got my favorite, the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah, that shit's fun.
Go on YouTube if you have not seen this. It is the worst thing you'll ever see, but so much fun. I mean, it's just bad. Of course, you have Empire and Jedi. You had the Ewok series, Star Wars Droids, Episode 1, 2, and 3 Star Wars. You had the Clone Wars. Just a lot of stuff, and it's still coming out. You have coming up Skeleton Crew, Star Wars New Jedi Order, Dawn of the Jedi. So this is going to go on forever.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It can go on without me, and newer generations can enjoy it, and more power to you. But for me, I just see the disintegration, and maybe it's part Disney, who knows, or it's just what fans want. But I do see the degeneration of the purity of the, original Star Wars product and feeling. It doesn't have that feeling anymore.
Yeah.
So for those of you who enjoyed the original first 3 Star Wars films, what I would recommend, let's see if you agree.
Okay.
The Force Awakens.
Yep.
Definitely has the nostalgia feeling. It feels like it's connected to the original Star Wars films. Solo, which I thought got a bad rap.
It was very harshly rated, but it was pretty decent. It was not my favorite. It's not top 5.
Right. But
it's still
fun.
pretty good.
And, the whole origin of Han Solo and Chewbacca. And,
yeah.
It was fun. Rogue One.
Absolutely. 100%.
In
Watch
fact,
it.
That's like up there with maybe above the Force Awakens.
Yeah, I would put it above.
And The Mandalorian. At least the first couple seasons.
I would say the first 2 seasons are really good.
Yeah. And but that's about.
Also, I know you don't like them, but I'm gonna recommend them because they're still very good and they're still very relevant. And someday you'll sit your stubborn butt down and watch them.
Okay.
Rebels was pretty good. Star Wars Rebels, the animated one. Don't make that face. Don't make that face. Don't make that like ew gross face, man. The Clone Wars, mwah, so good, dude. Listen, you're making that face, but trust me, it is the greatest thing ever. When you get closer to the end of the series and you have all the clones now going, to follow Order 66, some of them are breaking down before that. And like this whole mental, like...
Okay, I'm not saying they're bad.
You, anytime we talk about the Clone Wars, you're like, there's no Star Wars. And listen, man, they're great and they're amazing and they're fun.
Well, you know what? At least they had a spirit.
They do. They do.
And I'll give them that. I just, the format or the medium of animation for Star Wars is kind of off-putting. But
Fair.
I'll give it that.
Yeah. So I would recommend those two to anybody else.
Okay. All right. So let's bring this one to a close because we're running way over. If we haven't put you to sleep yet, we're winding this down.
Go to sleep, little Jedi, and you'll wake up with the Emperor.
Wow, that's fucked up.
Execute Order 66. Shoot all the little younglings.
Oh my god. Okay, on that dark note, you have any closing thoughts before we leave?
Good soldiers follow orders.
And
if you watch the Clone Wars, you would understand how deep of a quote that is.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, man.
All right, and may the Force be with you.
There you go. Classic. Iconic.
Classic. So, so for next week, join us next week where we are going to travel through time. And we're going to do some time travel films. Now, we're not going to go with the obvious, which is Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Or even The Time Machine. We're going to go with some obscure films that are really fucking good, which you are going to enjoy.
Okay.
And I'm sure you haven't seen any of these.
Okay.
We're going to go with a film called Time After Time.
Time after time.
No, not the Cyndi Lauper song. It's from 1979, and it's basically about H.G. Wells. Who builds, okay, as you know, H.G. Wells is the author of The Time Machine, but in this film, he builds a time machine, and it gets in the hands of a local serial killer who goes into the future in San Francisco. H.G. Wells finds out and has to go through time to stop him. Who is this killer? Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
Damn good movie. And the other one we're going to cover is a film called Somewhere in Time. It's a romantic sci-fi time travel film with Christopher Reeves, who played Superman. Yeah, a little tearjerker there, so, you know, get ready to shed some tears. And a movie called Time Rider, which is about this motocross motorcycle racer who's in the desert. His gimmick is he wears all red leather and has a red motorcycle. He veers off during a race, ends up in a government restricted area where they're doing time travel tests, and they send him back to the 1800s during the cowboy days with his motorcycle, and now they think he's the devil. And he has to fight the bad guys and help the good guys. It's a lot of fun, cheesy popcorn fun. So Time Rider, Somewhere in Time, and Time After Time for next week's episode. No, it's not the Cyndi Lauper song.
Anytime you say the title, I'm going to think about that.
So we hope you've enjoyed this overly long episode of the show. So please help to support the pod by giving us a nice review, 5-star rating. Another way you can support us is simply to subscribe to us and follow us on Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, Boomplay, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Also, don't forget to drop by our Facebook group and leave us a comment. Say hi. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on our YouTube channel, where we also have all of our episodes. You can also contact us directly via email to theFilmJoePod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, hear your complaints, your agreements, whatever you have on your mind. And so, with that being said, let's close this one out.
I'm trying to think. If you were to start watching Star Wars at the same time that we started the podcast, I'm thinking to be at the trash compactor scene by now.
Pretty much. I think so.
I think so, man. That's where I'm kind of guesstimating you would kind of land. Yeah. Anyways, that's where my thought process was when you were closing down.
Okay. So with that being said, I'm Joe.
I'm Carlos.
And this is the Film Joe podcast, where film talk happens.